Hi guys, how's it going? Great. I'm here to talk to you today about the power of entrepreneurship to solve some of our most pressing city challenges and how investors are missing the boat. When you open up the pages of TechCrunch or the Wall Street Journal, you read about startups that are changing the world through the next dating app or on-demand butler service. This, by the way, is a real article about a real startup in a real newspaper. We're told that entrepreneurship has the power to drive real change and to revolutionize industries, but the startups that seem to be getting all the attention and funding these days aren't solving problems that matter. We need more entrepreneurs solving real problems, problems like homelessness and sustainability, which is why my friend Julie and I started an organization to help support urban impact entrepreneurs. So, what do I mean by urban impact? Well, you're an urban impact entrepreneur if you're looking to develop a solution to a city problem like, transportation or workforce development, and you're looking to scale that solution to cities across the US and beyond. Urban impact entrepreneurs are incredibly important to the future of our cities because we're experiencing a really unique confluence of events right now. On the one hand, we're rapidly urbanizing. So for the first time ever, 81% of Americans now live in cities, and that number is going to keep growing. Here in San Antonio, you guys are on the list of the top 10 fastest growing cities. But on the other hand, just in light of the fiscal climate that we're in, our municipalities can no longer provide all of the quality of life services and amenities that make it so great to live in our cities. From my perspective, at least, this is a real opportunity for startups. So, what are some examples of some awesome urban impact startups? Well, these are companies at the forefront of tech for good, and they're looking to solve problems like homelessness. So take Hand Up, for example. Hand Up is a crowdfunding platform for the homeless and other neighbors in need. Individuals can use the platform to raise money towards useful items like medical expenses and housing. Urban impact entrepreneurs are also looking to support the implementation of universal preschool in our cities. So Kid Admit is a great example of that. They're basically a common application for preschools, and although they only launched about a year ago, they're already in 45% of all preschools in San Francisco. They're in all 9 Bay Area counties, and they're now looking to expand to their next major metro. And of course, urban impact entrepreneurs are looking to solve the city problem of transportation. So Hitch is a great example of that. Hitch is a peer-to-peer ride-sharing platform that matches cars with multiple passengers. The idea here is to fill up all the seats in a car so you can take cars off the road. And excitingly, Hitch recently announced that it was acquired by the ride-sharing company Lyft, which is pretty great. I've seen firsthand the impact that urban innovators can have on their communities individually, but collectively, I'm talking about an urban innovation movement. These are startups that are scaling to cities across the US, they're creating hundreds of quality community jobs, and they're doing it profitably, which is great. But if they're so great, why aren't we seeing more people start companies in this space? Where are the urban impact entrepreneurs? Well, most of today's big innovations start small, and they start with small, leap-of-faith investments called seed investments. Seed funding is absolutely critical. Without it, most startups they can't get off the ground. They need this funding to help build out their product, which they can then go use to raise more money or grow their business. But the thing is, urban impact companies are not getting seed funding. In a study we did for work, we found that entrepreneurs who are looking to solve community problems in cities are less than half as likely as their more traditional peers to secure seed funding. That's a huge disparity, and it means that startups in this space aren't getting the resources they need to get off the ground. So, why aren't investors stepping up? Well, there are 2 types of investors that could step up. The first are more traditional seed funders. These are folks like tech angels and micro VCs, but these types of investors think that social impact, urban innovation means lower return, which is too bad because urban innovators are generating real returns. I mean, just look at Zipcar or Revolution Foods. And then there's the second type of investor called an impact investor. So impact investors prioritize both social impact and profit. So you'd think they'd be a great fit for urban innovators, but you would be wrong. Because impact investors don't do seed funding. They don't like funding untested business models, which basically rules out all startups. A recent study by JP Morgan and the Global Impact Investing Network identified $46 billion in impact assets under management, but only 3% of those assets are actually earmarked for seed funding. That comes out to about $1.38 billion, which is a drop in the bucket in terms of the overall investing landscape. Just to put that into perspective, that's less than the ride-sharing company Uber by itself raised in its last round of funding. Equally problematic is the long funding cycle of impact investors. So what little seed capital they do have to invest is super hard to get a hold of. We hear about impact investors having long, vetting cycles, requiring long written proposals with tons of metrics. But if a startup's founders are worried about how they're going to have to pay their rent next month, how can we possibly expect them to endure such a long funding cycle? Comparatively, more traditional seed funders have really short vetting cycles because they understand that startups need to move quickly and that they haven't been around long enough to have any kind of metrics that would prove out a theory of change. And this is how this is how impact investors should be operating. So, is the lack of impact investors even a problem for the urban innovation space? The answer is yes, for two reasons. First, because impact entrepreneurs miss out on the valuable guidance that comes from mission-driven investors. And impact investors can help make sure that as a company grows, it doesn't lose sight of its social priorities. But there's a second and more important reason why the lack of impact investors is such a huge problem. As I mentioned earlier, many urban innovators are quickly written off by more traditional seed funders. Why? It's kind of a chicken and an egg thing. Investors like investing in sectors that have strong track records of financial return. But the urban innovation space is new and so hasn't had many home runs yet, which means that investors aren't going to be investing in the space. And that's why we have 100 dating apps and not 100 startup solutions for the homeless. I do love a good dating app, though. Entrepreneurship is a real, undisputed driver of innovative ideas to solve big, hairy problems. But we're only going to get what we pay for, which is why we need impact investors to step up and start seeding the market. Without them, urban impact entrepreneurs are not going to be successful. Will the urban impact space be super high growth enough to attract a ton of more traditional seed funders? I'm hopeful. I really am hopeful about this. And I think that the success of some later stage urban companies like Airbnb really back me up on this. But there's only one way to find out for sure, and that's by having impact investors step up and seed the market. This in turn is going to drive urban innovators towards the operational milestones necessary to really attract a whole variety of investor classes. So I challenge impact investors to start deploying capital at an earlier stage and to make sure that they're reducing the barriers to access that capital. And I encourage more traditional seed funders to recognize the financial opportunity that comes in the urban impact space. Because if we really want to see more for-good, for-profit startups out there, we're going to have to start funding them because we're only going to get what we pay for. Thank you.